But the reason I still like to meet with that person is because normally they feel bad about that, which she did, and they have a little bit of a guilty conscience, and then that usually motivates them to move forward on working with you. What's up, everybody? It's Levi from freesalesadvice.com coming to you right after a call for the day, and it was a good call. Made a close, made a sale. So I actually was meeting with a person who was 30 minutes late, and the thing was is that, you know, if you've got that hour blocked off or you've already got that time scheduled, you know, what's the big deal if you have to wait a little bit? And of course, because it's Friday afternoon at 3:30, which Friday afternoon appointments usually are kind of tricky, right? And she forgot about it, so she had left and where we were actually meeting at. And so one of the other coworkers there called her while I was there, and she actually turned around and came back so we could meet up. So took her about 30 minutes, but no big deal. But the reason I still like to meet with that person is because normally they feel bad about that, which she did, and they have a little bit of a guilty conscience, and then that usually motivates them to move forward on working with you. So, you know, I asked her again, as I usually do, what would you like to learn today? And she told me she would like to learn a little bit about retirement. So that's what we started to discuss. And I could see from the very beginning she was giving me buy signs immediately. And she was nodding with me on everything I said. You know how we've talked in previous videos how I will nod as I talk to my clients, and that usually gets them nodding, and you're probably nodding right now as well because you agree with me. And if I tell you something and I want you to agree with me, then sometimes I'll just nod inadvertently, and that gets that person to start nodding, and that tells them subconsciously to that they want to move forward. So towards the end, I asked her, I said, well, would you like to go ahead and get the plan started? And she said, yes. And she said, well, what can I start with? Now, that's a trick question. That is a trick question, because if you tell her what the average is, then that could be too much and that could scare her away. Or if you tell her what the minimum is, then they'll usually go with the minimum. So that's the other tricky part of it. So what I usually say in this scenario is you should start with as much as you're financially comfortable with. But here's the other problem with that, which she got me on. Well, she didn't get me, but she threw out there, oh, well, in that case, I'm going to have to go back and look at my budget. So I said to her, well, do you have a budget already? Because I know most people don't have a budget. And so I was just kind of politely calling her out on that. And when she says, I've got to check my budget, then I said, well, do you have a budget in place right now? And she goes, kind of. So I knew right then and there that she doesn't have a budget. And if she had a budget, then she should know exactly what she has left over. So I just said, well, look, if I were to say to you, start at $100 per paycheck, she said, that would be fine. So I said, okay. She gets paid twice a month, so that's really a $200 a month contribution. And then, of course, I bumped her up for the 30% because it's a pre-tax contribution, and she won't miss that extra money. So in that note, I got her from $0 to $260 a month on a contribution, but the point is that I almost lost that because she wanted to go back and check her budget. So that's really the key point of this call today, is when people don't know what they want to do. If you're working in a scenario like I am, where there is, you're not have a set price or something, maybe even with what you're working with, there's a negotiable price. I mean, you really need to do what you can to understand what's in their mindset. You don't want to throw out a number too low that they'll accept right off the bat. At the same time, you don't want to throw out a number too high and scare them off. And so if you're selling something with a price tag, then that's what you got to be mindful of. So that's the key component of today's video, is that if you get the buying signs early, and I also, the other part of this was that I didn't keep going and dragging on the conversation. She was giving me buy signals from the very beginning, so I went in for the close, or the closing question, within probably 6 or 7 minutes. I just kind of gave her a little bit of a base knowledge of how I could help her out, and then just asked her, hey, you want to get that started? So then that allowed us to get into the part where she was like, well, I'm not really sure what to do on the contribution. So like I told her, well, look, at least we're starting with something, and that's the key. We're starting with something. We can change it. I said, if you go back and you look at your budget and you find more money, then give me a call. Give me a call and we can adjust it. But what will happen if I don't hear from you, I'm going to follow up on your anniversary date and we'll make the adjustments from there. Because that's likely what's going to happen. I know that in my experience, is everybody always wants to do more, or they want to be ambitious, but at the same time, they say they want to be ambitious, but they want to be so ambitious that they need to go back and check their budget. Well, I know if they leave out of that appointment that day, that they're not going to go home and check their budget. They're going to forget about me. And no matter how much I follow up with them, it's very, very hard to get them back in that situation. So I know I'd rather get them started with something rather than nothing. And that's exactly what I did. So that's today's video. Get them started with something over nothing. And be careful about when they ask you questions, because that's throwing it back on you. So you have to answer those very carefully. And then also when you're talking about price and it's negotiable with whatever it is you're doing, don't start too high to scare them off. Don't go too low, because if they accept it, then you know you could have got more. So you've got to find that sweet spot. Apologize for all the shakiness, but as you can see, I'm cruising around. I was been stuck in traffic, just like all you other awesome salespeople out there. That's what we got to do, right? We cruise around, go see our clients, and we get stuck in traffic on the way home. But hey, I don't mind it. I always listen to some good audiobooks, get my mind right, increase my knowledge. That's something you should do as well. So thanks again for tuning in. Again, if you have a question, leave it on our forum. Let this community answer it for you. That's the awesome thing about it. And I'll see if I can't get involved as well sometimes, but you know, I don't always have all the answers, but somebody else in this community might. So go ahead, post up your questions, let this community help you out. And again, remember, always be closing. Have a great day.